Once upon a time, there lived a very wealthy and influential king. This was in a very rich village down in the south. The king had 19 wives, but despite this, he had no son. And since he was getting old, he became desperate for a son and made a declaration that the first woman who will give him a son will become his favorite queen and the queen of all his queens. This made his 19 wives do all they could to bear a son, but none was able to have a son for the king. One day, one of the king's most respected chiefs approached the king and suggested that the king should take on another wife, and he recommended a girl named Shalewa. The king accepted to see this girl the chief spoke so highly about, and when the next day came, the chief came to the king's palace with Shalewa. But the king, on sighting Shalewa, took no liking to her because she was not beautiful. "How can this ugly girl be my queen?" said the king as he laughed. But the chief convinced the king to look beyond her looks and marry her, and that she would bear him a son. The king, on hearing this, accepted, and Shalewa became his 20th wife. All the other 19 queens would always laugh at Shalewa because they felt she was ugly. They would make comments like, "How can the king's son come from this ugly girl?" And they said all these things, not minding how it made Shalewa feel. Even the king would stay months without requesting to see Shalewa, and this hurt Shalewa so deeply. But she was hopeful that one day people would see beyond her looks and accept her for who she really was. So most evenings, Shalewa would sit in front of her hut, singing sweet melodies as she had a very beautiful voice. She did this every evening till one fateful day. The king was in a very bad mood as the pressure of having a son was taking a toll on him when suddenly he heard a woman singing. For some reason, her singing calmed him down and filled him with so much peace and joy. The king sent his guards to find out who was singing, and word returned that it was his last wife, Shalewa. The king immediately lost interest as he could not get over her ugly looks. However, every evening when Shalewa sang in front of her hut, the king would sit quietly in his palace listening to her sweet melodious voice. This went on for a while, and the king did not know when he fell deeply in love with Shalewa. One fateful day, the king sat and waited for Shalewa's songs but heard nothing. The king began to grow impatient as he sent his guards to go in search of Shalewa. They arrived at her hut and found her in tears. She had grown tired of all the humiliations and rejections, but little did she know that the king was now head over heels in love with her. When word got back to the king regarding the condition of Shalewa, the king was greatly touched and sent for her immediately. Shalewa was in shock as this was the first time the king was sending for her since she became his wife. She appeared before the king, and the king was pleased to see her. She no longer looked ugly in his eyes, as his heart had already accepted her. The king spent some time with Shalewa, and not long after, the news spread around the palace, and the king's other wives became envious of Shalewa, especially the fifth wife of the king, Funke. Funke had always done things to please the king, as she was hell-bent on becoming the king's favorite wife. One evening, Funke paid a visit to her juju man to prepare a charm that would make Shalewa unable to speak or sing. Her juju man gave her a substance that she should drop into Shalewa's drinking water, and that once Shalewa drinks the water, she will become dumb and unable to speak or sing. Funke was extremely happy, and she did as her juju man instructed. She poured the substance into Shalewa's pot of water and snuck back into her hut like nothing happened. Shalewa, not knowing about Funke's plans, drank off the water and quickly noticed that she was unable to speak or sing. She did everything she could to talk, but the more she tried, the worse it became. The other queens in the palace mocked her, and this broke Shalewa's heart. Funke was happy because she believed that her plan would work, as the village tradition forbids a king from coming close to anyone with any form of disability. What she did not know was that the king had already fallen deeply in love with Shalewa. Shalewa began to keep to herself and would only come out of her hut late at night because she could not bear the humiliation from the king's other wives. The king was so sad as he missed Shalewa's melodious voice, but he could not see her as he was forbidden to do so by tradition. One fateful night, while Shalewa was sitting in front of her hut crying, she saw a very old woman in the distance. The woman approached her and gave her a herb which she instructed Shalewa to boil and drink, promising that her voice will be restored after she takes the herb. Shalewa was so grateful and thanked the old woman for saving her. The next day, Shalewa did as the old woman had instructed, and her voice returned. The king was in his palace when the chief priest arrived at the palace to deliver some good news to the king. He said, "The gods have revealed to me that one of your wives is now pregnant with a son, and that the child should be protected at all costs." This news gladdened the king's heart, and he thanked the gods for answering his prayers at last. At the same moment, Shalewa began to throw up and noticed that she was pregnant. Word got to the king about Shalewa's pregnancy, and the king was ordered. Word got to the king about Shalewa's pregnancy, and the king ordered that Shalewa should be kept in his inner chamber, as he could not risk any harm coming to her or the unborn child. The news of Shalewa's pregnancy, as well as the chief priest's revelation, troubled Funke, the king's fifth wife, greatly, as she could not bear to watch another woman become the queen of all the queens. "I won't let that happen," said Funke, as she snapped her finger in anger. Immediately, Funke rushed to her juju man again for help. This time, she asked her juju man to create a charm that will make the king's favorite wife run mad on the day she will be pronounced the queen of all the queens. And the juju man prepared the charm and blew it into the air. Funke returned to the palace happy, as she could not wait to see the events unfold before her eyes. Months passed, and Shalewa was now close to her delivery date when rumors began to spread around the palace that Funke had just given birth to a son. This came as a shock to everyone, including Funke herself, who did not know that she was pregnant all this while. Funke was fast asleep that evening when suddenly she felt a very sharp pain in her stomach. Everything happened so fast, and before anyone could understand what was going on, Funke went into labor and gave birth to a son, to the shock of everyone. The king, on hearing this, began to celebrate as he could not believe that he now had a son. Escorted by his guards, he quickly dashed to see Funke, and on sighting her, he declared her the queen of all the queens, and immediately Funke ran mad. All efforts to restrain Funke proved abortive as she quickly ran into the forest and no one saw or heard from Funke again. Even the guards sent to go after her could not find her, and no one, not even the king, understood what went on. Few days later, Shalewa also gave birth to a son, and the king now crowned her the queen of all the queens, and she raised her son and Funke's son like her own. The lesson to be learned from this story is that envy can lead one into so much trouble. Focus on the good things in your life and be happy for others when good things also happen in their own lives. Do not plan evil for anyone because evil has a way of coming back to you. I hope you enjoyed this story. Please like, subscribe, and leave a comment. It helps us grow our channel. I'll see you in our next story. Bye.